A. Bago is on our telephone line right now. He's the president and CEO of his group, Executive Management Services Incorporated. We interviewed you on the occasion of the publication of your book, which had that ominous title about the devil at your doorstep. And when I was watching a tape of Joe Biden speaking in Las Vegas, and talking to a group of Teamsters, I thought of you because it's people like you that really should be just as concerned as everybody else over what these unions are attempting to do.
Well, that's right, Bob, and I've testified in front of Congress in the last month, and I'm concerned what this government's trying to do through changing business regulations and the course they're trying to take us and basically taking over business in this country.
You know, the big problem for those of us who believe that people should have a right to belong to a union or not belong to a union, for those of us who feel that way, what we have to be concerned about is the way the media shapes this talk. For example, all the coverage on what those goons did in Madison, Wisconsin. They vilify everyone, they demonize everyone, and use language that I'm afraid a lot of people are going to believe.
Well, that's right, Bob, and I see it from a unique perspective because I went through all this when the SEIU ran their corporate campaign against my company, and they're doing this, by the way, against companies all over the country today, because I get calls all the time from business people that are being attacked by the SEIU and other unions, and the media, the mainstream media, just will not wake up, or they're afraid to wake up and tackle this problem. And it is a problem because this administration is dedicated to getting card check passed through the National Labor Relations Board through regulation changes. And if we don't stop it soon, it could be too late before the next election cycle.
Now, for the edification of our audience, card check would mean that they couldn't vote in a traditional small d democratic way. That all they would do is just signify by checking a card.
That's exactly right. They don't want a secret ballot election, and because they know they're going to lose most of them, and by signing cards, what they're going to do is go out and intimidate these people and coerce them into signing the cards, and the company's going to be union overnight, and it's a terrible scenario. It really is, and the employees are the ones that really get hurt because they have no free choice.
How do you feel about what's going on in the case of Boeing moving to South Carolina?
Well, I think there's two things there. I see a little bit different perspective than some. I think Boeing is a little bit of a sleight of hand because I don't think the NLRB thinks they can win that election, but they do want to put pressure on the right to work laws, and I think that's one of the big things they're doing it for. But the other is as I put in my last blog this past week, ruled by fiat, is that the NLRB with Craig Becker, who was recessed appointed by President Obama, is put out many or promulgated many rule changes he wants passed. Things like shorten election cycles. You got to post the National Labor Relations Act in your application office. Another one is they believe that because the Girl Scouts have access to offices to sell cookies, the unions ought to have access to businesses to sell their union propaganda. And this combined with the Boeing situation, I really think what they want is to put in place situations where the union can go in and say, okay, you, Mr. Employer, are not adhering to these laws like posting or allowing our people to come in and talk to your people, and all these type of things. And then they're going to file unfair labor practices and they're talking about fines attached to these unfair labor practices of up to $10,000. Well, most employers, especially smaller ones, can't afford that, and they get 2 or 3 of those filed against them, and the National Labor Relations Board will uphold them, because they upheld ridiculous ones against my company. And they're going to be sitting there looking at paying these fines, and the union will come in with what they call a neutrality agreement. That's what they tried to get me to sign. And that agreement basically takes away the election, puts a gag order on the employer, and the employer has to give a list of all his employees and their home addresses so the union can go out and card check these people. I mean, it's a scheme, it's a scam that they're trying to pull, and it needs to be stopped.
Well, you are indeed rather unusual in that you are speaking out on this. I think there are people in management who kind of hope if they close their eyes and tiptoe a little bit, maybe the devil won't be on their doorstep anymore.
Bob, you're exactly right, and I'll give you a perfect example. I was having breakfast with a businessman in Indiana a few months ago, and I was going over all this information with him, and he says, Dave, he says, I agree with you, I support you in what you're doing, I think it's wrong, and I'm scared to death. He says, but I'll be honest with you, I just don't have the makeup to fight these people, and I really don't want them to know who I am and be exposed to this. I don't think I could stand up underneath the attack.
Now, I noticed that with the automobile manufacturers who employ a lot of people, and I'm not talking about the traditional big three. I'm not talking about GM, not talking about Ford or Chrysler. I'm talking about Honda, for example, Toyota, Nissan. They have chosen right-to-work states to open factories, and those factories have been very successful, and people in the community are very happy with what's been going on. Can you add anything to that?
Well, yeah, I know I live in Indiana. We are not a right-to-work state, and a lot of my competitors went through the same corporate campaign against them that the SEIU ran against my company. And all my major competitors caved in and signed the agreement. And I know for a fact that their employees today would love to have the opportunity to opt out of the union, because they don't like what it's doing to their company. They don't like paying the union dues because they don't think they're getting anything back in return. And they just want to be free to do what they want to do. And that's why these companies are successful in these states like South Carolina.
And of course, it goes without saying that the union dues, in most cases, a good chunk of it goes to the political campaign of the enemies of free enterprise.
Well, that's exactly right. And, they'll have you say that there's laws against that. But when you look at some of the research that's been done on some of these unions, in some cases like 67 to 90% of the requests have been denied, and they're hiding it, and that's what's going on, and they're going to then give it to the political people that they want elected, and in turn, as you say, give them favors back, and it's a scary situation.
Now, of course, you pointed out correctly that Indiana is not a right-to-work state, and it makes me wonder how Governor Daniels was so successful in what he has done for that state in his almost 8 years in office.
Well, Governor Daniels is a great man, and I happen to know him personally, and he's a good businessman. He understands what's going on, and he really has done some things behind the scenes, like he signed an executive order that allowed people not to pay union dues who are in public unions. So a lot of that money went away. He's still working on programs to fight the teacher unions. He's actually got some language in law passed where it's restricted their collective bargaining abilities, and I still believe that he has right to work on the table, and we may see that show up here in the next year.
Well, I thank you for joining us, and I admire your courage, and I know you're going to keep it up.
Well, I feel like I have to. It's the right thing for my employees and for Americans across the country. And just one short story, I was on Fox Business News Tuesday night, and they had 2 SEIU members on, 2 young ladies from California, and they're fighting their own union because they want the finances revealed because they don't like where their money's going in these political campaigns. And I think it's starting to take hold. I think people are waking up, and I hope we get a tsunami going across this country.
I like that. Thank you very much, David.
All right. You have a great day.
All right.